Ha. Ha. Ginger Runner. What is up, everybody? Ethan Newberry, the Ginger Runner, here for another Ginger Runner review. It's been a few months since I've reviewed a shoe from this manufacturer, but this shoe has been a go-to for me for the last few months. I thought no better time than now to tell you all about the Altra Torin 3.5. It's time. Okay, first things first, as always, Altra, zero drop, wide toe box, foot shaped design. You're getting what you know and love in the Torin 3.5. But the new Torin has a bit of a trick up its sleeve. Less of a trick and more of another version? What? A mesh upper and a knit upper. Both utilize the same ultralight EVA midsole with A-bound layer, same outsole, similar midfoot tightening system. So really where these shoes differ is in the uppers. Comfort, the stretch, the layering, the look, and the feel. Talking about the Torin in general, it's actually been quite a while since I've reviewed a Torin. I believe the last review I did was of version 1.5. I skipped to 2.5 and 3, mainly because I had some durability issues and they didn't seem too much different than the version that I had already reviewed. These, however, are tickling my fancy, and I knew I wanted to get a review out there so I could tell you all about the shoe. So in today's review, I'll obviously talk about the things I like and dislike about the Torin 3.5. I will also tell you which of the two I prefer. Without a doubt, that's important. So without further ado, let's dive into it. As always, starting with things that I like about the Altra Torin 3.5. The midsole, the ultralight EVA with an A-bound layer. Something about earlier versions of the Torin just didn't really make me happy. Midsole felt heavy, dense, with not much life. I know that their midsoles haven't changed a whole hell of a lot over the years, but I will say the new 3.5 for some reason has more life. It feels better on the roads. I get more joy out of the shoes, more miles, and that's a good thing. Certainly enjoying all of my long runs in these shoes. The uppers, yes, I like them. Both uppers have their benefits. The mesh, super breathable, light, airy. The knit is stretchy, super comfortable. It's soft and unique. It's nearly identical material-wise to the Altra Escalante, which I reviewed before, and I know many of you have run in as well. So if you're familiar with that shoe or used to it on your foot, this will feel very similar. I will say that I tend to want to grab the mesh shoe when I head out for a run. I feel like though it's not quite as soft and comfortable as the knit, the mesh is lighter and more breathable. I would look at the knit as something that's great for an all-dayer if you're just wanting to walk around in the shoe. But when it comes to running or racing, tend to lean towards the mesh, and I might have just spoiled my entire conclusion about which shoe I prefer. And as I mentioned in the previous versions of the Torin, the uppers were the one thing that really broke down on me, so these are two breaths of fresh air in that they're holding up quite well to all of the abuse that I'm throwing at them. So the uppers are great, the durability of the uppers is even better. And finally, fit. I have had my fair share of fitment issues in Altras. I love that wide toe box. That foot shape is fantastic. That's one of the major selling points of Altras and why I'm really drawn to them. But that roomy toe box leads to a misfitting midfoot and an all-around sloppy heel in most of the Altras. The fit of the new Torin 3.5 is dialed in through that midfoot. They're using a really cool suspension system there through that midfoot mesh. Very similar to Saucony's Pro Lock or Brooks's Nav Band. It's essentially fabric and materials that are connecting the laces to the base of the shoe, giving you a solid fit over the midfoot. Feels new, and it's nice to have that midfoot locked into the shoe. I will say that the fit is not perfect in the Torin 3.5. I'll get to why here in just a second. But overall, a welcome and great improvement. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that are bugging me right now, things I dislike, starting with fit. Yes, I mentioned the midfoot is fantastic. The forefoot, of course, is great. But as with many Altras, especially the more cushioned Altras, the ankle and heel areas fit a lot like a skate shoe. This has been an issue for me for years. I just cannot get the ankles to really fit well. Not all their shoes suffer from this. A lot of their more minimal or reduced running shoes tend to have a more aerodynamic, well-fitting heel and ankle area. It's the thicker, more cushioned models that have all that extra padding, all that extra weight and fabric that just drives my ankle and heel crazy. It's a bit clumsy. Durability. Yes, both uppers are holding up really well, but it's the midsole that I've had an issue with. The A-bound and EVA materials tend to flatten out fairly prematurely. I've noticed this with Lone Peaks and other Altras. Right out of the box, they feel great. You get a lot of bounce, you get some life in the shoe, but as soon as you start putting 60, 70, 80, maybe 100 miles into the shoe, that midsole just breaks down where a lot of your use, wear, and weight is located, and unfortunately, I'm beginning to feel it already in the Torin 3.5. I will say the Altras with the Ego midsole material, which I was a fan of in the Escalante, are still holding up quite well. The new Paradigm is utilizing it. I wish it would transition into these shoes as well. But right now, the ultralight EVA with the A-bound just losing the life. And finally, Y2 uppers. I wouldn't necessarily consider the Torin a casual wear shoe, which I think that this knit upper is more geared towards. The mesh upper is more of a race day sort of grab, but for me, I would just always choose the mesh. From a marketing perspective, I think it adds a bit of confusion. The knit upper is heavier, it's denser, it's warmer, though it is a bit comfier. The mesh is almost an ounce lighter, more breathable, in my opinion, better looking, and cheaper. So it comes down to why make two different versions of the same shoe. The knit Torin isn't necessarily the one I'm grabbing. The mesh is. I'm sorry. But that's pretty much it for dislikes. I think this is a vastly improved Torin. I think it's one of the better Torins yet. Again, I'm leaning towards the mesh only because it's lighter, it's more affordable, I think it's better looking, it's holding up pretty well too. If you're looking for a zero drop, cushioned, foot-shaped, wide toe box shoe, I think the Torin 3.5 is easily a grab. It's not as light and nimble as, say, a Kinvara, but it's certainly going to be great for half marathons, full marathons, or just plugging along for a long time out there on the road. But let's get into more detail, shall we? Build quality, I think it's great. I think the midsole is the only thing that's really suffering here. The uppers are improved. I would lean towards the mesh. Comfort-wise, it's great initially. Right out of the box, you're going to notice a lot of life out of the shoes. You're going to have a lot of fun running on roads. But again, the midsole breaks down a little bit. It's going to be a bit of a harsher ride. You're going to lose some of that bounce prematurely. Regardless, you're still getting a comfortable shoe. Fit better than previous versions. The midfoot fits way better. The ankle and heels, if you've had problems with Altras in the past, these may continue with that same line, but they are improved and I'm happy about that. Price, $125 versus $135. So the mesh, again, cheaper, lighter, better. And finally, looks, I again prefer the mesh. I think it's a really aerodynamic design. It's fun. The colors are kind of cool. The knit is fine. It looks fancy, but as far as overall look and design, I'm still leaning towards the mesh. And finally, is the Torin 3.5 a buy, try, or a why? It's a solid try, borderline buy. I'd say if you're used to Altras, if you've run in Altras before, you're going to enjoy the new Torin 3.5. It could definitely be a buy for you. If you're looking for a road shoe to go long and just kind of plod along at your casual pace, definitely worth the try. So I'm going to give it a solid try. And that, my friends, is it for my review of the ALTRA TORIN 3.5. Fun shoe. I'm going to put you down now. So that brings me to my final question. Have you run in the ALTRA TORIN 3.5 or previous versions? What do you think of them in the comments below? Let me know. And I'm curious if it is a shoe that you have or are willing to try. And of course, if you have more questions about the Torin, you want to buy a pair for yourself, I have links in the description. It'll take you over to Running Warehouse. It helps the channel out, so consider that if you're looking to purchase the shoes. And that, my friends, is it. Remember, if you like this review and have not yet already, consider subscribing, youtube.com/thegingerrunner, and there are social media links that will take you to the social places. Consider supporting the channel for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/thegingerrunner. There's some cool perks on the back end, contests, all sorts of giveaways, fun stuff. But that, my friends, is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you get out there, train hard, race harder, and party the hardest. I know I am. We got some fun stuff coming up in like the next 2 weeks. You're not going to want to miss it. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.